Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is the Doctor and the Duffer, the Min Ed Soda podcast. It has been a while since we have been together, but we are back, and today we are going to share with you our favorite podcasts that we listen to. And today we're going to mostly talk education, but maybe we'll slide in some other podcasts as well. But I'm excited to have my friend and colleague, the doctor, with us again for another episode here in early December. Dr. Van Erp, how are you?
My gosh, Kip, it's been a long time and it's hardly early December. It's already almost the middle of December. Today's the 10th. We're recording on December 10th. Can you believe it?
Was our last one with Chris Strinmone? Was that the last?
That was on October 12th, I believe.
Wow, we've gone way too long.
Yeah, it's been a while. So it's good to connect. I know that both you and I have been busy. We've been traveling a lot, meeting with school leaders across the state. And it's always good to be back in face-to-face meetings with them so that we can connect on that. We don't have to connect over Zoom, which Zoom certainly has served a purpose for us during the last couple of years. But I know personally speaking, it's been great to get back out and see principals face to face.
Yes, it has. I mean, but I'm even running into more and more principals that because they are, this is a tough time right now. We've got sub shortages, and not even always sub shortages. Sometimes we just have flat out staff shortages and not able to fill anything that, we've got principals that are scrambling to fill a lot of jobs that aren't necessarily in their lane right now, but there's nobody else in the lane to fill it. So they are. And so I've got a lot of principals that are actually still choosing Zoom because I think it's easier for them to cancel. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but like that they don't feel as bad saying, hey, can we postpone when it's Zoom and I'm not out on the road traveling to them or stopping at their place when I'm on my way from somewhere else. That I've got several that are still just choosing the Zoom option because they can pop in, they can pop out, they can make it shorter if they need to. It's just a really tough time to be a principal and an educator right now with everything going on.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing too, is that principals are spending many of their days subbing in classrooms. If in our small rural districts, if the custodian is gone, the principal's subbing as the custodian. They are making and serving meals if need be. I know in a couple of situations, principals are driving buses. So principals have always been a jack of all trades, and now it's getting to be even more so, which I think if you know a principal, make sure that you're reaching out to them and checking in on how they're doing, because I know, like you said, Kip, this has been a really stressful time. And my concern is that our school leaders are supported in the ways that they need to be, whether it's by their staff, by their families, their communities, their students. And that goes for teachers too. I know teachers have been doing a lot of subbing to cover for colleagues that are out due to illnesses or because staff members are out because of family illness. So, if you can reach out to any educators that you know and give them some words of encouragement, let them know that you're supporting them, I know that they would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you circled back to all educators, because I was thinking the same thing as you were talking. And while our job is more principal specific in who we work with, it's a very tough time to be in education right now. Everybody's a little bit stressed out and dealing with things that just haven't been part of the normal until the last couple of years. But now we're 2 full years into COVID, and it is becoming a little bit more of the norm. But that's also what's making it a little bit more stressful too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to talking about some podcasts today, Kip, because I know that both of us do our fair amount of driving and catching windshield time. And I know that is one way in which I can I can keep up on some of my own professional development while I'm driving is to be listening to some of the podcasts that we're going to talk about today. And besides podcasts, I listen to a lot of audio books on my Audible app. And thanks to my wife, Nancy, for allowing me to dip into her resource of that Audible app, because that's been awesome. I listen to a lot of different stuff there too. So I'm excited to dive into those today. What I think we're going to talk about, probably 10 of them that we listen to. Both of us don't necessarily listen to all of these, but these are ones that we've identified as ones that are good. There's good content, good delivery. It holds our interest, which, I mean, I'll speak for myself. That can be a challenge on some of my long trips, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. So I'm excited to talk about the 10 that we're going to highlight today.
Yeah, and obviously, if anybody's listening to us, they are into podcasts. So, the few audience members we have, like, I'm sure that they will gravitate towards some of these things, because most of them we're going to talk about are about school leadership and teaching practices, and teaching strategies. And so, if you listen to us, these are ones that bring us a lot of our information. And so I'm gonna kick it off with one I know that is at the top of both of our lists, and I don't want it to slide away. We're not sharing these in any kind of particular order, but I would say that this one for me, and I'm going to speak a little bit for you too, because we've talked about it a lot, is very high on our list of, like, a can't miss. I listen to it every week, and that is Robin Jackson's School Leadership Reimagined.
Yeah, I like how she gives examples of how things that leaders can do to make their schools more effective. So that's what I enjoy about it. One thing I don't appreciate about the podcast is that usually in the first 8 minutes, she's giving her spiel about some of the products that they sell and the things that they do, which I'm sure are awesome. But I usually, just for those who are listening, you might want to skip ahead to like 7.5 or 8 minutes in the podcast. That's when she really gets into the nuts and bolts of what she's talking about for that podcast. But it's awesome. The information is great.
And she, one of the things I really love is she calls a spade, right? Mm-hmm. Like, one of the very first episodes of her podcast that I ever listened to was around equity work. And she made the comment of, like, we need to stop waiting for everyone to get comfortable. No, it's there's never going to be a time when everyone's comfortable, and we just need to go ahead and do the work. I think she said, I'm sick of waiting for people to be comfortable, or something along those lines, and just drew me in. But then from there, it's that whole, she talks about the difference between being a manager, a leader, and a builder. And, builder being what is her tip of the iceberg, right? Like, that is the creme de la creme of being a school leader, is when you become a builder, because you're building things that will sustain even after you are gone. So it's not necessarily about managing, and it's not necessarily about leading. It's about building a system that will sustain itself, and everything just is, it flows over into everything, and everybody buys in.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in with number 2 here, and I'm going to go to Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. That's another one that I listen to quite often. Her latest episode is How to Take a Sabbatical with Me Over Your Winter Break. She does a great job of encouraging teachers, and I would include school administrators in that, really taking care of yourself. And I know that she highlighted that in one of her seasons about just her own time away from her podcast to take care of herself. So that's something that I always appreciate about that podcast.
Yeah, and it really is about taking care of each other, and not only all the different strategies that go with it, but I recall the same thing. Like, I was on a walk listening to one of the final episodes of last season, and she was saying, I'm going to take a break. I need to just get away for a while and refocus on me and family and get everything back to where it needs to be. So it's exciting that she's back. The Truth for Teachers with Angela Watson. Another one that I just kind of feeds right off of that I really enjoy. And this again is teaching strategy, teaching belief set, is The Cult of Pedagogy with Jennifer Gonzalez. I don't know if you are a Cult of Pedagogy fan or not, but there's always nuggets that you can pull from every episode. She often brings on guests, and then they make the on the Cult of Pedagogy website, they make the resources available to you. You can go find them and use them. And she uses strategies across all different disciplines and curriculum areas. Again, I probably got drawn into her too, basically at the start of COVID, because she did a lot of stuff around distance learning and really connecting with kids and building relationships with kids and using technology in different ways. So that one is Cult of Pedagogy, Jennifer Gonzalez. And I don't know if that's one you follow or not.
I do. I follow that one. Sometimes her episodes are really short and to the point. Sometimes she has some longer episodes. So sometimes it's a crapshoot what you're going to get as far as length. But she's another one too that I have found her material very user friendly for teachers and school leaders. So I always try to listen to that one when I'm on the road. Here's one, Kip, that I don't know if you listen to this one. I don't think you do on a regular basis, but I listen to this one. It's called Called to Coach. It's one that is done by the Clifton Strengths people. That one is usually a little bit longer. It's usually 45 minutes to an hour, but that one really focuses in on leadership. A lot of times they talk about leadership specifically around business, but there are a lot of applications to not just business, but education leadership as well. So that's one that I try to listen to quite often.
Yeah, and you're right. I'm not as a regular listener, but I have. And one of the things I really appreciate that one is it's in a series, right? Like that they'll talk, like they'll carry things over several episodes. Like here's like, it's almost like it's a workshop, if you will. Like here's session 1, and you kind of need most of session 1 to have session 2 be really powerful. And so they might put things into like a 4 or 5 episode sequence. Kind of with that same kind of mentality, the Call to Coach, the Bright Morning podcast, Elena Aguilar. Yeah. I'm not always as a regular listener as I would like to be, but huge Elena Aguilar fan. In our role as coaches and mentors, just the materials that she brings from all of her different resources that she makes available for free on her website, but also just in her books. I mean, we reference The Art of Coaching Teams, the Coaching for
awesome
Equity,
book.
Onward, and I just updated there. She's coming out with another new book too around professional development. So
yeah, and I would recommend for those people that haven't had a chance to read any of Elena Aguilar's books to check those out, because I think the first one that we probably both read was the Coaching Teams book, and that has been a kind of a roadmap for coaching leadership teams for me. So there's, all of her books are great resources. So I'm going to shoot another one at you, Kip, and I think you are a follower of this podcast. It's called Scene on Radio, SCENE on Radio. Lot of good. This is one that really helped me to learn a lot more about my own cultural responsiveness. A lot of good historical information about, oh my gosh, you have to listen to it. It's one of those that once you get started in a season, I think there's 5 seasons now, but John Bewin, he's the gentleman who is behind the Scene on Radio podcast, and the stuff that he has on the different seasons is so, for me, it's been a great learning experience and helped me to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, I have not gotten through all 5 seasons, but 2 of the seasons really stood out to me, and it was like a small addiction. Like I wanted to just keep rolling
Yeah.
into the next
Yeah.
episode. Most of the episode or the seasons tend to be somewhere between 12 and 15 episodes. But the Seeing White and the other one was about the patriarchal society or that we live in, the male dominated. And I don't remember what the title of that series was, but
I don't remember
it followed
either.
up. It was Seeing White was the previous season, and it rolled right into the male dominance and male power structure in the United States. And kind of both of those seasons really do go back in time and take a historical perspective to help show a little bit of how we got here. And one of the things I really appreciate about it is it brings it to light, but it's not like shaming somebody for being a white male or anything like that. It's just trying to help you gain a perspective of how did we get here and why were some of these policies put in place. And so, it does talk about privilege, but it gives you a little bit of understanding about how, it's not people's today's fault that it happened, but you have to be aware that it happened so that it doesn't continue to repeat itself.
Yeah, I would agree. I know you talked about one that I have not listened to, and that I believe is a podcast by Brad Gustafson called Unearthed.
Yeah,
Brad talk a little bit about Brad's one of our guys. He's a Minnesota guy.
Yes, and actually he was out in his first principalship was out in our territories. He was out in Tracy, Minnesota, out on that western border before moving into Wayzata. But he, along with a principal in Michigan, Ben Gilpin, have what is called Unearthed, and it's like a quick snapshot. It's like a 10-minute episode. They haven't had any new ones out for a little bit, I don't think, but they've been pretty busy. I know Brad just has a new book that just came out, Literacy Levers. I think it's 6 literacy levers, or I might have the title wrong, but sorry, Brad. I'll make up for it later for not having the exact title, because I did order it. So there, Brad, I did order it. But Brad's a great guy. But it's a quick snapshot, and they always bring on a guest. And so it'll be a quick conversation around some kind of topic. And then they end every episode by putting their stakes in the ground. What is it that we took from this quick PD snapshot with some expert that we brought in? And like I said, almost never more than 10-minute podcast.
Yeah. And speaking of short podcasts, another one that I like, and we didn't talk about this when we were planning for this podcast, but one that I like to listen to, and I'm not a regular on this, but I like to pop it on when I'm, if it's a short ride. It's called TED Talks Daily. And they just kind of cover a wide array of topics on that podcast. So if you're looking for something it's short, I mean, it's usually less than 15 minutes. And a lot of different interesting topics. I would recommend TED Talks Daily for you.
Another one for me that you kind of just spurred with the kind of the short and to the point is it's called Myth versus Reality. And it's it's a couple of principals out in the Washington, D.C. area in Virginia. Hamish Brewer, who is the skateboarding, tattoo, graffiti principal. I mean, he'll say that about himself. from Australia, but he's turned around a couple of schools in Virginia. He's got the book Relentless. And in the Myth versus Reality, he's also with Dr. Andy Jacks, who's also a principal in the Virginia schools. And Dr. Jacks just had a new book come out as well called Discipline Win. And this is like a 20-minute podcast. They tackle 4 topics for 4 minutes each, and they throw it out like, homework is beneficial, myth or reality. And then they'll talk about homework for 4 minutes and their opinions and thoughts on it. And then they roll to a new topic for 4 minutes. And so they do 4 4-minute topics of education related. And then they will throw in a couple of fun topics like, what's the best coffee or something along those lines. And so again, real quick hitting, you can tell that those two have worked together for a long time because they just kind of play off each other really well. And so that's Myth versus Reality with Andy Jacks and Hamish Brewer. And then Andy also has another one called Discipline Win. It used to be the Andy Jacks podcast, but when he was ready to publish his new book, they switched it to the name of his book, Discipline Win.
That's what we should do. We should write a book called Mined Soda.
Yeah, good plan.
That would require both of us to pay attention for longer than like 20 or 30 minutes at a time. So
I used to have a college professor in education that used to get frustrated, and she's like, you need to use more words when you write. Apparently I did not paint enough of a picture. I was too to the point, like bullet points would have been good for me.
you said what needed to be said.
But I didn't always expand enough. And so I don't know that I quite have the skills for a book.
Well, I think according to my count here, I think we covered our 10.
There's 2 more. I think there's 2 more I just want to touch on.
I know you want to shout out. There's one that we talked about called My Bad.
Yes, John Harper.
Tell me quickly about that one.
John Harper's got My Bad, and it's all education. And he always brings on somebody that shares a lesson they learned by a mistake that they made. So we'll talk about how something kind of just blew up in their face in a class and what they should have done differently. And so he's got a couple seasons worth, and the last year has really kind of been focused around the My Bad around distance learning and COVID and mitigation strategies. Really, again, they're not terribly long, usually 15-20 minutes in that ballpark, but brings on an educator, sometimes a teacher, sometimes a principal, sometimes a social worker, and they just share a story about a time that they made a mistake and what they learned from it. And so basically it's here, learn from my mistakes. Nice. And the other one that I would feel bad if we didn't share out was Leading Equity with Dr. Sheldon Eakins. And the podcasts are great, but he also has, with many of these, just like Dr. Eakins has, there's a blog that goes with it. And so you can get like the Dr. Eakins sends out the Weekend Voice every Friday. It shows up as a letter in your email. So yeah, that's my list. Those are my must go to when I'm traveling on the road. And I have a card that the radio doesn't work, so it's all podcasts and audiobooks or Pandora. And when you travel in Southwest Minnesota, sometimes the cell signal is not all that good, so you can't be Pandora. You got to have podcasts that you've downloaded and are ready to roll. And so that's my list.
I got the same thing going in my service cooperative car too. It's not the greatest sound system, so it's not like I'm going to jam out the music while I'm cruising down the road. So that's why I'm always got my podcasts and my audiobooks ready to go. So, well, thanks for sharing all those, Kip. Hopefully people, hopefully some of them are familiar to people. Hopefully we called out a couple of podcasts that people could listen to that will further their own learning and and also their podcast enjoyment. So
Yeah, hopefully we did them justice too, right? Like, I mean, obviously
yeah,
we're sharing them because we have very much enjoyed them and like them. But dude, just find with most of them, they've got many episodes out there. Find a topic that seems like of interest to you and jump in with that one.
yeah. The nice thing about podcasts too is you can be listening to them while you're folding clothes, while you're washing dishes, while you're cleaning the garage, mowing the lawn. You can take them with you wherever you're going. So
And you
I don't
can,
know,
if there's
enjoy
something
them.
if there's something you missed, but you really appreciate it, or you forgot to write it down, you can rewind it.
Yeah. I don't know about you. Oh no, I'm thinking of audiobooks. I use the bookmarking function quite a bit in the audiobooks that I listen to. So well, thanks again, Kip. And I'm so glad that we're able to get another episode out here. It's been too long. So I don't know. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. We'll try to be better, but it's now December, mid-December, holidays rolling around. Hanukkah is already, I think 2 weeks in?
Oh boy, I'd have to look that up.
Hanukkah was a little early start this year, by the way the calendar fell. But yeah, and Christmas season for those that celebrate Christmas and the New Year. Yeah, well, who knows if we'll get something else in before the New Year, but we'll try.
Yeah. Well, my hope too is that if we don't get to see people before the new year, that everyone enjoys the holiday season. You're taking care of yourself and you find some time to rest and relax and recharge yourself and be ready for January to roll around.
Yeah, and hopefully one of the podcasts we suggested for you brings you some ideas and strategies that make it easier for you to be able to just enjoy family and enjoy your job a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this baby up.
Well, there we go. I think you just did. There's another episode of the Min Ed Soda podcast. I am the Duffer, Kip Link, and my partner, the Dr. Todd Van Erp, with another episode of the Min Ed Soda podcast.
Take care, everybody.